Nothing happened, that is the truth of it. Nothing happened, and yet everything began. A look on a path, hands touching over a pile of gathered wood, a sleepless night, a full moon, and her, sitting beside you in the dark, not saying a word, not needing to. Before we begin, this is the first story, not the first story ever told. There were stories before this one, stories told in firelight by people whose names are lost, whose faces are gone, whose only trace is the faint outline of a hand pressed against a cave wall somewhere in the dark. Those stories existed. They mattered. This is the first story in this series, the beginning of something that will grow and branch and become complicated in the way that all human things become complicated. It starts here, with the simplest thing in the world, a feeling you should not have, a person you should not look at, a night that should not have happened 50,000 years ago, a tribe somewhere on the land that will one day be called Europe, a cold autumn, a full moon coming. In this story, you are a member of the tribe, not the chief. Not anyone important. Just a person living inside the rules of a world that has very clear rules, about to discover that rules and feelings are two different things entirely. You have lived in this tribe your whole life. You know every face in it, every voice, every smell. You know who snores at night and who wakes before the others and who always takes slightly more than their share at the evening meal and says nothing. You know the children by their cries and the old ones by their walks. This is what it means to live in a group of 23 people for your entire life. You know everything. There are no secrets, or so you believed. The chief's name, in the sounds your language uses, means something close to stone. He has had it since he was young. Since the winter, he survived alone for 4 days after falling through river ice and came back walking. He is not the largest man in the tribe, but he carries himself as if he is, a quality of stillness and certainty that makes people step aside without being asked. He has led this tribe for 11 years. In that time, they have survived 2 bad winters, a predator attack that killed 1 man, a sickness that took a child. They are alive. This is his achievement, and everyone knows it. You respect him. Everyone respects him. You do not like him. You have never examined this feeling closely, because there has never been a reason to. He leads and you follow, and the tribe survives, and this is the shape of things. Liking is not required. His wife came to the tribe 4 years ago, from another group to the north. This happens sometimes, and the exchange of people between tribes. A practice that strengthens bloodlines and builds alliances without anyone having named it as such. She arrived with a small bundle and a careful expression, and within a season she had found her place here, her hands quick and useful, her presence quiet. You had not thought much about her. Until 3 days ago, a tribe is a world. Everything you need, everything you fear, everything you love, exists inside it. The rules that hold it together are not written anywhere. They do not need to be. Everyone knows them the way everyone knows not to touch fire. Some things simply are not done. This knowledge is so deep it rarely rises to the surface as thought. It is just the shape of the world. 3 days ago, the shape of your world changed slightly. You did not choose this, you did not plan it, and it simply happened the way weather happens. You were carrying water. 2 clay vessels, heavy, 1 in each hand. The pee from the stream back to the camp, a walk you had made hundreds of times. The path runs between 2 stands of trees, narrow, the roots of the older trees making it uneven underfoot. You know this path without looking at it. She was coming the other way, also carrying something, a bundle of plant matter, leaves and roots she had been gathering. You had met people on this path before, countless times. The meeting is simple. One person steps aside, the other passes, a nod or a sound of acknowledgement. Done. But the path was narrow at that particular point, and you were both carrying things, and for a moment, just a moment, there was not quite enough room, and you were side by side, close, and you looked at each other the way you look when there is no choice but to look. And her eyes were dark and very direct. The look lasted less than a breath. Then she stepped aside. You passed. The path opened again behind you. You kept walking. You carried the water back to camp. You set the vessels down. You did the things the afternoon required. But something had stayed. Not a thought, not even an image. Something more like a temperature. A slight warmth in the chest that should not have been there, and that you noticed the way you notice a stone in your sandal, small and persistent and impossible to ignore once found. A look is nothing. It happens 100 times a day between 100 different people. Eyes meet. Eyes move on. The world continues. You have looked at every person in this tribe 1,000 times and felt nothing particular about any of them. One look is nothing. Yet you told yourself this as you lay down that night. You told yourself this clearly and with conviction. And then you lay awake for a long time, which was unusual, because you had never had trouble sleeping before. You watched the fire that night instead of sleeping. The fire in the center of the camp, the communal one, banked low, but still alive. The coals a deep red in the dark. Around it, people were sleeping in their various positions. The familiar shapes of the people you had known your whole life, bundled in skins against the cold. The chief was sleeping closest to the fire. He always slept there. This was understood to be his place, the warmest position, the most protected. No one had given it to him. No one had to. He had simply claimed it, and no one had seen any reason to argue. His wife was a little behind him, slightly further from the warmth. You looked at this for a moment, and then looked away because looking at it felt like doing something you should not be doing. The night sounds came and went. An animal somewhere in the trees. The wind in the upper branches. Somewhere a child turning in its sleep and settling again. These were the sounds of every night of your life, and normally they were the sounds that pulled you into sleep. Tonight they kept you on the surface. You thought about the path, the narrowness of it, the moment of no choice. You thought about her eyes. Then you stopped thinking about her eyes firmly, because there was nothing to think about. There was a chief. There was his wife. There was the world with its shape, and you were in with that shape, and you had always been inside it, and you would stay inside it. Now you closed your eyes. You did not sleep for a long time. The mind at night is honest in a way the mind in daylight is not. In daylight you can move and work and keep your attention on the things that need attending to. At night the attention drifts toward what it actually wants to look at. This is useful information, if uncomfortable. The discomfort means the thing is real. The next morning, you went to gather wood. This was your task that day, one of the rotating duties of the tribe, the ordinary work that keeps a group alive. Firewood, water, food gathering, the maintenance of shelters. Everyone did everything in turn. This was one of the unspoken rules, the expectation of contribution, the thing that made you a member rather than a burden. You went to the edge of the forest where the fallen branches accumulated, where the dead wood could be taken without damaging living trees. This too was known without being taught. You did not take from the living. The dead were already given. She was there. Also gathering, a different task but the same location, the forest edge where useful things accumulated, fallen branches and certain plants growing in the increased light. She was crouched over something, and her back to you, sorting through what she had collected. You stopped, not for long, a moment, no more. Then you moved to a different part of the fallen wood, a little distance away, and began your work. Neither of you spoke. In your tribe, speech was used efficiently for information and coordination, not for the filling of silence. Silence was not uncomfortable. Silence was simply silence. But this silence was different. You were aware of it as a presence rather than an absence. You worked. She worked. The forest was quiet around you. The morning light coming through the branches. The particular smell of cold air and dead leaves and turned earth. Then your hands found the same branch. Not intentionally. You had reached for a piece of fallen wood at the same moment she did, from different directions. And both your hands closed around it at the same time. The wood was rough and cold. Her hand was warm. You both let go. A fraction of a second of contact, nothing more. You each took a different piece of wood. You both continued working, but the warmth of her hand stayed on your fingers for the rest of the morning. The body records things the mind tries to dismiss. A temperature, a texture, the specific weight of someone else's presence in your peripheral vision. These recordings happen without permission, and they do not delete themselves when asked to. They stay, small and exact, in the part of you that was not consulted, be it when the rules were made. Yesterday you paid attention. This was the dangerous thing, and you knew it was dangerous even as you did it. You let your attention rest on her during the ordinary movements of the day, the way it would rest on a fire, or a bird, or any other thing of interest. Not obviously, not in a way anyone would notice. But you watched. She moved through the day with a quiet efficiency that you had never particularly observed before. Tasks were completed without ceremony or complaint. When the children needed something, she provided it. When the old woman near the eastern shelter needed help with a heavy thing, she helped without being asked. Her hands were always doing something. She laughed once. In the afternoon at something one of the other women said. A short sound. Genuine. Not performed. You were on the other side of the camp and you heard it. You also watched the chief. You watched the chief watch her, or not watch her, which was its own information. He was occupied with the concerns of leadership and the planning of the next hunt, a disagreement between two of the men that needed managing. He moved through his day with the focused efficiency of a man who had many things to attend to. His wife was one of the things he had. He attended to her at the appropriate moments, and otherwise his attention was elsewhere. This observation produced a feeling in you that you did not immediately name. You named it later, when you were lying in the dark again and sleep was not coming again. The feeling was this. He did not see her. He knew she was there. He knew she was his. He managed her presence the way he managed everything else in the tribe. But he did not see her. You could not stop seeing her. There is a particular loneliness in being seen, and a particular loneliness in not being seen. You had never thought about this before. You were thinking about it now, in the dark, for the second sleepless night in a row, and you understood that something had already begun that you had not chosen and did not know how to stop. Today you thought about the rules, not the spoken ones. There were not many of those. The spoken rules were simple and practical. Do not take more than your share. Do not leave the camp alone at night. Do not go near the marked territory of the other tribe to the east. These rules had reasons attached to them. Visible reasons. The kind you could point to. The unspoken rules were different. They had no reasons attached, because the reasons were so obvious, they had never needed stating. The chief's wife was the chief's wife. This was as simple as saying the river flows downhill. It was not a rule anyone had made. It was simply the shape of the world. You had never questioned the shape of the world before. You sat at the edge of the camp in the afternoon and felt the weight of the question you were not quite asking. By the question that was forming itself in you without your cooperation, not what should I do. You knew the answer to that. Nothing should happen, and nothing would happen, and this feeling would pass. The way all strange feelings eventually passed. The question forming itself was different. The question was, why does the shape of the world feel different from the inside of it than it did yesterday? The world had not changed. The chief was still the chief. His wife was still his wife. The rules were still the rules. Nothing was different. Except that you had looked at her and she had looked back, and your hands had been warm for hours and sleep had not come for 2 nights, and the feeling in your chest was still there, small and persistent, the stone in the sandal that would not dislodge. Rules exist for good reasons, and the reasons are usually about survival, about the stability of the group, about the prevention of the kind of conflict that can destroy a small group of people who need each other to live. You know this. You have always known this. Knowing it has never before required any particular effort. It requires effort now. You went to sleep early, or tried to. Sleep does not come. The fire is low. Around you the tribe breathes in its various rhythms. The old man near the shelter entrance has his particular pattern. In through the nose, out through the mouth, steady as a tide. The children breathe faster, lighter, the breathing of people not yet weighted down by the concerns of days. The chief breathes evenly and deeply, the sleep of a man who has decided what needs deciding and does not lie awake second-guessing. You lie awake second-guessing. Not about anything you have done. You have done nothing. But the mind in the dark does not require actions to examine. It examines possibilities, directions, the roads not taken, and the roads you are trying very hard not to look at. She is there, her breathing among the others, close enough that you could identify it in this darkness if you let yourself. You do not let yourself. You think about the hunt next week. You think about the shelter on the north side that needs repair before the deep cold comes. You think about the old woman's cough, which has been worsening, and what the tribe does when the old ones become unable to contribute. These are real thoughts about real things, and you think them with genuine attention. And then, underneath all of them, the other thing, still there, still warm, still the stone in the sandal. You open your eyes. The roof of the shelter above you, the dark, familiar texture of it, the stars visible through the gap at the edge where the covering has not been properly secured. Stars. Outside there is moonlight. You can see it at the gap's edge, the particular quality of full moon light, brighter than it has any right to be, silvering everything it touches. The full moon is significant in ways your language does not yet have words for. You feel it in your body before you think it in your mind. A pull, subtle but real, like the difference in the air before rain. The moon makes things visible that the dark conceals. It does not create them. They were always there. It simply shows them. You sit up, quietly, carefully, not disturbing the sleepers around you. You move toward the opening. You need air, you tell yourself. Just air. Just the night, just a moment outside. The cold hits you when you step outside. Autumn cold, the real cold. Not the mild chill of early evening, but the deep cold that settles in when the fire is behind you, and the sky is open above you, and there is nothing between your skin and the full weight of the night. You pull your covering tighter. Your breath comes out in pale clouds and disappears. The moon is enormous, full and very bright, higher than you expected. The sky around it a deep blue-black, the stars dimmed by its light. The clearing in front of the shelter is transformed, every familiar shape made strange and beautiful by the silver light. The trees at the edge casting shadows that are almost crisp, almost shadows of daylight. You stand and look at it. There is no word in your language for what you feel looking at a full moon on a cold, clear night. Something that is not quite comfort, and not quite awe, and not quite longing, but contains something of all three. The moon is very old and very reliable, and it does not care about any of the things you have been lying awake, caring about. This is, in its own way, a relief. You stand there for a while. The cold deepens. Your feet begin to feel the ground. Then, You hear a sound behind you. Soft, careful footsteps on the ground. The particular sound of someone trying not to wake the others. You do not turn immediately. You already know, in the way that bodies know things before minds admit them. She sits beside you, not close, the appropriate distance, the distance that means nothing, the distance that people maintain between themselves as a matter of ordinary respect. She pulls her covering around herself and looks at the moon. Neither of you speaks. In 50,000 years, in every culture that will ever exist on this earth, there will be this. Two people sitting in the dark, not speaking, looking at the same thing. It will mean different things in different places and different times. The feelings inside it will be named in 1,000 different languages, but the shape of it, two people, and the night and the silence between them, that shape will never change. Because it was already old when this night happened. The silence goes on. It is not an uncomfortable silence. This surprises you. You expected discomfort, the awkwardness of a situation that should not be, the pressure of all the unspoken rules pressing on the space between you. But the silence is simply the silence. The cold air, the moon moving almost imperceptibly above. At the sound of the forest at night, which is never fully silent, always breathing. You are very aware of her, not in a way you could point to. She is not doing anything. She is sitting beside you in her covering looking at the moon, the same as you. But her presence has a weight to it, a specific gravity and you are oriented toward it the way a stone is oriented toward the ground, even when nothing is pulling it. She shifts slightly. Not toward you, just the small movement of someone settling into a position, finding comfort against the cold. But the shift changes the distance between you by nothing measurable, and you feel it anyway. You think about the chief sleeping inside. You think about this clearly and honestly, not pushing the thought away. He is there. She is here. These facts exist simultaneously, and you are inside both of them. The moon is over the tallest tree now. Time has passed. How much you could not say. The cold has settled deeper into your feet, your hands, the tip of your nose. You should go back inside. You do not go back inside. There are moments that ask nothing of you and require everything from you simultaneously. This is one of them. Nothing is happening. You are sitting outside in the cold looking at the moon. This is all. And yet inside you, something is being decided that you are not making a decision about. Something is being written that you are not choosing to write. The body makes its commitments quietly, without asking the mind's permission, and by the time the mind notices, the commitment has already been made. She turns her head slightly and looks at you. Not a glance. A real look. The same look from the path 3 days ago. Direct and unhurried, and not asking permission for itself. In the moonlight, her face is clear. You can see the steadiness of it. You look back. This look lasts longer than the one on the path, long enough to be unmistakable, long enough that both of you know exactly what it is, what it contains, what it means about the territory you have entered without stepping anywhere. Nothing has happened. This is still true. You are sitting the appropriate distance apart in the cold and you have not touched, and no words have been spoken. Everything has happened. This is also true. She turns back to the moon. You turn back to the moon. The night continues. After a while she stands. She does it quietly, and the same careful movement she used coming out. She pulls her covering around herself. She looks at you once more, briefly, and the look is not quite a smile, and not quite a question, and not quite goodbye. Then she turns and goes back inside. You sit alone with the moon. The cold presses in now that the warmth of her nearby presence is gone. You feel its absence, the way you feel the absence of a fire you have moved away from, a subtraction of something that was providing more than you realized. You sit for a long time. Nothing happened. You will say this to yourself many times in the days and nights ahead, and it will be true, and it will also be the least true thing you have ever said. A look is not nothing. The way a body orients itself toward another body is not nothing. The specific quality of a silence shared with one particular person in the cold under a full moon is not nothing. These things are the oldest things, older than language, older than fire, older than the tribe and its rules and its chief and all the shapes of the world that are supposed to make certain feelings impossible. They are not impossible. You know this now. You knew it before. But now you know it in the way that changes things. You go back inside before the first light. The fire has burned lower, the coals still red but the flame gone. You add a piece of wood from the pile beside the entrance, carefully, not too much. The practiced movement of someone who has maintained fires through cold nights for years. The flame catches. The shelter warms slightly. You lie down in your place. Around you the tribe breathes. The old man. The children, the chief. She is there, in the dark, in her place, in her covering. You do not look at her. You look at the ceiling of the shelter, and you let your breathing slow, and you think about what the night has given you, which is nothing you can hold or point to, and everything. You think about tomorrow. The hunt is being planned. There are things that need doing. The shelter still needs repair. The old woman's cough is still worsening. The world still has its shape, and you are still inside it, and the chief is still the chief, and his wife is still his wife. All of this is true. And also true, you sat beside her in the moonlight and looked at her, and she looked at you, and the world did not end, and the rules did not strike you down, and the night held you both in it, equally without judgment. The fire you added begins to find itself. The new wood catching fully, the warmth reaching further into the shelter. You feel it on your face. Sleep is coming now. Finally, after 3 nights, the heaviness arriving behind your eyes, the loosening of the grip your thoughts have had on you, you let it come. The first feeling is not the last feeling. The first look is not the last look. The first night sitting in the cold under the moon will not be the last night. You do not know this yet. You only know tonight, this moment, the warmth of the fire and the heaviness behind your eyes, and somewhere in the dark a few feet away, the slow, even breathing of someone you should not be thinking about. You are thinking about her. Sleep comes anyway. Tomorrow everything will be the same. Tomorrow everything will be different. Both of these things will be true at the same time for a long time. For longer than you know how to imagine tonight. A note on history. The emotions in this story are among the oldest documented in human experience. Archaeological evidence suggests that pair bonding, social hierarchy, and the tensions between them existed in early human communities long before recorded history. Cave paintings, burial practices, and the structure of early settlements all point to social arrangements that would have generated exactly the kinds of feelings described here. The capacity for what we call betrayal, and the guilt and desire and conflict that surround it, appears to be deeply embedded in human social cognition. Some researchers argue it may be inseparable from the development of complex social structures themselves. The rules exist because the feelings exist. The feelings exist because we are the kind of animal that lives together. Nothing happened in this story. This is historically accurate. Most of what matters in human emotional life is never acted upon. It lives inside the people who carry it and shapes them from the inside silently, in ways that no archaeological record can ever fully capture. This series continues. The feelings do not stay inside. They rarely do. Good night.